The Lloyd Pierce firing got a lot of people scratching their heads, and I kind of want to talk about why it made sense for him to get fired, because there's a pattern when it comes to other teams as well. All that coming up in just a minute. What's good, everybody? It's your boy Jay here with Unfair Sports, where we take a pensive approach to the sports conversation. Today, I want to talk about Lloyd Pierce being fired and why it actually made sense. Lloyd Pierce firing. So, Lloyd Pierce was let go by the Atlanta Hawks. What was that? Right before the All-Star break. The team was 14-20, and they were 11th in the Eastern Conference. And they had just lost to it was like March 1st. They had just lost to the Heat on Sunday night. 109-99. So the team's 14-20. Lloyd Pierce gets fired, and a few people are scratching their head of, oh, man, they just taking this man down. It's not cool, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, I get why he got fired. I'm going to be honest. So the team started off hot. Like, they started the season off hot, and we thought that they were going to do something. And it just didn't work out. And this is where I see things didn't work out. This is my opinion on this one, okay, right? My thoughts is any team right now that's not doing good, that didn't make the bubble, they're not going to get any better anytime soon. Now, a lot of the teams, like, for example, Chicago got a new coach. So I expect them to have growing pains and trying to get things together. But for the most part, teams like Pistons, Magic, Minnesota, Sacramento, teams that didn't make the bubble, you should be concerned about them as an organization moving forward. Because if you truly think about it, they've been off. They were off since March. And a lot of teams today are struggling coming back from the bubble, especially those that went deep into the playoffs. So, like Boston's struggling. The Denver Nuggets are struggling. The Lakers, honestly, kind of starting to struggle. The Heat started the season off struggling, and now they're starting to ramp up. You'll notice that the really, really, really good teams, especially those that are eliminated early in the bubble, are starting to stick out. Utah, first-round exit. Look at them, number one in the West. 76ers, first-round exit. Look at them, number one in the East. Brooklyn, they're starting to move up, first-round exit. All these teams that basically got sent out early are on an upward trajectory. And I think that the reason for that is that they didn't have a long layoff. They had enough of a layoff to where they got a quick rest, but they were still in the groove of things. Whereas teams like the Lakers and the Heat went to the wire and they're exhausted from it. The Nuggets, They had 2 straight 7-game series before they finally got pushed away by the Lakers. So, they're exhausted from not only the longevity of being in the bubble, but playing so deep into the season and then having to turn it back around and start the season up. The Jazz didn't have to worry about that. The Blazers didn't, and you can see that they're doing a little bit better. But the Hawks should have been a lot better coming out the gate and continuously out the gate. Now the Hawks are doing better. Them and the Knicks are actually playoff teams right now. So are the Charlotte Hornets. I'm going to talk about the Hornets a little bit later. But the Bucks, they were out second round. So they're doing just fine. Boston's struggling, and they don't look like they're tough. Like, I listened to Ryan Russillo, and he was kind of mentioning it felt like there's like a softness to them. And I don't know what it is. I think Brad Stevens has hit his peak with this team, and it's time to get somebody else that can move them to the next level. So I expect Boston to probably move on from their coach, because I get that. But a lot of these teams that should have been unless you made some big changes like the Rockets. I get why the Rockets are so bad. They gutted their roster. Same thing with Oklahoma City. So the teams that basically ran it back should be a lot better than they were before. And the Hawks are one of those. And at the same time, they added some pieces to their roster on the defensive side with Chris Dunn and Rajon Rondo that was supposed to actually propel them up, and it didn't work out. Now they're on a 6-game winning streak after letting go of their coach with Nate McMillan, which is a veteran coach that I feel like can get somebody to the next level because he was really good in Indiana. He was really good in Portland. They needed that guy to give them the and they're getting that now. But that Lloyd Pierce firing made 100% sense. Like, I'm not going to ever argue why they let him go on that because, like I said, they were out. They didn't make the bubble, and they came back looking strong, and then it just flatlined. Now, it could be injuries and stuff. think they lost, was it DeAndre Hunter? They lost him for a bit. I get some of that stuff, but that team should have been a hell of a lot better this year going into. And it actually makes me think about because they actually added Danilo Gallinari, who's been in and out this season. That dude has finessed his way into some money. I am impressed with Gallinari's ability to not make an all-star game and still get paid $20 million a year. And Bogdan Bogdanovic, who has also missed a lot of time. But my point is a team like them should be a lot better than what they are. And they're now starting to show it, which is good. And that, I was mentioning it, the Trae Young piece. I'm kind of curious, will he ever get back to the All-Star game? I'm going to talk about that on another episode as I kind of talk even more about the All-Star. But that's going to be interesting. Will he end up being, you know what? I'll throw that on Saturdays because I have a question about him as well as another guard that I'm wondering will be the next Mike Conley, who for some reason never makes the All-Star game. Has never made the All-Star game until this year as a replacement, but he's played at a high level for years. But we all know why. He's in the Western Conference. I'm going to talk about that as well. So, with that, his firing made sense, and I'm surprised we're not seeing any other movements in that regard. Because the NBA this year right now, I mean, it's super weird, of course. I mean, like the Wizards, they've been up and down. They're back down now with 5 straight. So I'm waiting to see when Scott Brooks will get let go because there's no reason for Scott Brooks to still be there. He's been there for too long, and they have not really produced anything. Hell, they still haven't won 50 games. I think ever. Well, no. It's the Bullets had it back in the day. Probably ended with the 70s. Last time they won 50 games in a season. Ain't seen that since. That's not a good thing. That's a bad look. But these teams that aren't producing right now after being in the bubble, like the Raptors, they made the bubble. They're struggling. I don't know why. I'm trying to figure out who's hurt. Because I think most of their players have played this year, and the Raptors are looking really, really bad. Like Nick Nurse is starting to get questionable about his coaching ability. Even though he did really good last year getting to the bubble, getting to the playoffs, but I don't know what's going to happen with them. So, in conclusion, my point, teams that didn't make the bubble and they're not better, they're probably not going to get better anytime soon until they start making some changes. Some of the changes is personnel as well as coaching. And at this point, it was time for the Hawks to go ahead and move forward with more of a veteran coach that can really get the best out of this roster because their roster is actually not bad at all for the East. And since they changed coaches, they have moved up. Let's see what happens next.